wait a minute, stop. If you're a wholesaler and you're assigning your contracts, you need to watch this video. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make your non-refundable deposits actually stick. Number two, I'm going to show you how to prevent your buyers from going around you and stealing your deals right from underneath your nose. And finally, number three, I'm going to teach you a secret clause I use in my assignment contracts to add up to $3,000 in every one of your assignment deals. So listen, before we get started, you guys know the deal. Hit the like button. Go ahead and subscribe so you can receive more great content from us here at Flip with Rick. I'm Rick Ginn, if you guys don't know me, and we're talking about assignment contract. Guys, what is an assignment of contract? It's an additional contract that gives the buyer the right to take over your place in your contract. So it stipulates you get the exact same terms, you get the same price, and you add your assignment fee on it. So for simple terms, if you're buying the house for $100,000, you're charging a $10,000 assignment fee. They're buying the house for $110,000. That's it. So an assignment contract typically has to be attached with the original terms of the contract, a photocopy for it, and they have to sign the agreement. And it's really important, first and foremost, you have an expiration date in your assignment. You're like, Rick, what do you mean by that? So if my contract expires on, say, January 31st of this year, and I'm not going to wait for my buyer to fulfill my date, which I agreed with my seller for the 31st, I'm usually going to set it 7 to 10 days prior. Why do we do that? Because if your buyer doesn't follow through, you now have time to either get another buyer or actually close on it yourself, or get an extension and get another buyer. Do not wait till the last date of the expiration of your contract. That is a huge mistake. You definitely don't want to do that. So let's get into it. Let's talk about the non-refundable deposit everybody talks about in wholesaling of assignment of contracts. So for clarity, I've been doing this a long time, and most assignment contracts, the way they're written, your non-refundable deposit is actually refundable. What do we mean by this? So a non-refundable deposit, the only way to make sure you can stick, this is what we do. When I have a buyer that I have had a past history, they bought multiple houses from me, I ask them to make out the assignment fee to my company. That's right. They make it out directly to my company. Why do we do that? Number one, it gives us absolutely control, and it reiterates and re-emphasizes that this is a non-refundable deposit. As long as we follow through and deliver the property at closing, then they have to leave a non-refundable deposit. So a lot of people ask me, Rick, how much do we do a non-refundable deposit? Make sure it's enough that you have their attention. $1,000 to $2,000 is not a lot of money. And quite frankly, I'd have no problem walking away from that if the deal didn't work out. I recommend $5,000 because it's really pay attention money, and you're guaranteed they're going to follow through on that deal. So I always ask them initially, make the deposit out to my company. So if it's ABC Holdings, have them make out to ABC, give them a copy of the check, attach it to the assignment agreement, and understand you're going to take $5,000 off at the closing. It's that simple. I get it, guys. If you have a new buyer, they're probably going to be uncomfortable giving you the deposit directly, but always ask for it first. Your backup plan is you can have them make out the non-refundable deposit to the title company, but I'm going to tell you, when you do that, it is not a non-refundable deposit. Typically, that money winds up in escrow. And so I'm in the state of Florida. So escrow basically reads that both parties have to mutually consent on the disbursement of it. So in the event there's a dispute, say he or she didn't follow through on the closing, is you have to sign off to keep that money, and so does the buyer, and rarely do they ever sign off an escrow. So what happens if they don't sign off on it? Well, actually, in my state, in the state of Florida, the escrow is a neutral agent. They don't represent you, and they don't represent the buyer. So what do? They send that money off to state, and you guys can fight it off in court, and it can take years. The bottom line is you don't get the money and you don't get compensated for your time. So guys, just ask for the assignment deposit to be made out to your company. The worst they do is say no, and you can go to plan B. Once I've established a relationship with a buyer, I pretty much demand they make out the deposit to me. And when you get a really good buyer, they'll just front you the entire assignment fee up front. That's how it works in most businesses. Assignments really, you come down to the root of it, it comes from your own mortgage. It gets assigned, the companies pay a fee, and they trade it all the time without your permission. In essence, this is the same thing you're doing. So guys, ask for your non-refundable deposit to be made out to your corporation. You are in 100% complete control. That's key number one. Understand the difference between a non-refundable deposit and a refundable deposit. So understand that when you make it out to the title company. Okay, so let's talk about how to stop a cash buyer from going behind your back and not stealing your deal. So remember, when you fill out an assignment of contract, you have to attach the original contract to it. What's on that contract? You have the seller's information. A lot of times there's a phone number on there. I black it out on a copy. You should do the same. But you need to let your buyer know that under no circumstances of any shape or form, without your written consent on paper, are they to contact the seller in any way, shape, or form. That means phone calls, texts, and personal visits. And what I do on my agreement, let me read word for word for you guys. If you want, you can copy this. I'm trying to give you tips and tricks to make your assignments really, really count. And it says on here, if the assignee attempts to communicate to sellers in any form, way, or shape, it will immediately terminate this assignment agreement and forfeit their deposit for liquidated damages. So, Mr. Buyer, if you decide to take my seller's information and try to go around my back and you knock on their door and that seller will sign a written affidavit, I'm going to take your deposit. Why am I going to take your non-refundable deposit? Because you're trying to cut me out. And number two, I already have your deposit in my hand. Okay? If you're going to be a cheat, I'm going to make you pay for it. It's unacceptable. Make sure the terms are very clear. And what I have them do is actually initial that under the contract. Once they understand they can't go around you and there's going to be pain, rarely will they ever try to cross you. So number one, get a non-refundable deposit. At least ask for it. And the next time you sell them property number 2, 3, and 4, it will be expected. Okay? And make sure that they initial that they are not to contact the seller in any way, shape, or form. And you can put in there, put in text, I don't care, voicemails, RVMs, emails, any form of communication is the key word here. So do that, guys. And if your buyers try to cut you out, now you have a way to have control of the deal. Ask me, how did I know this? I can't tell you how many times people have worked around my back. And you really don't want to be doing business with those type of people anyway. So you're not missing out on anything. You're doing yourself a favor. So let's talk about this secret clause to squeeze an extra $3,000 out of every assignment deal. And unfortunately, I learned this the hard way. As wholesalers, a lot of times we'll put properties under contracts and we can't sell them for the desired amount, or a problem arises that we didn't anticipate. And a lot of times when we bring our buyers to the property, we discover the problem. Maybe the roof's much worse than we thought. Maybe you got a foundation issue, but they're usually when there's significant issues and then the seller wants to knock 10 grand off that price, I'm not taking it out of my side, nor do I expect you to. So here's what you do. When you have a major, what I call renegotiating point, is most of the times I'll probably just drop that buyer at that point because he or she's beating me up on it. And I'm going to go back to the seller and I'm going to renegotiate because we discovered a flaw in the property that previously wasn't disclosed to me. So if I go back and renegotiate that contract that we already have enforced and the seller initials off on it and say I get a $10,000 reduction, I want to keep that amount. So in the perfect world, you do that before your buyer comes in there and you have an assignment agreement. But say you have an assignment agreement and say your buyer's freaking out over like the roof. And he says, listen, Rick, I'll give you 120 grand for the property. So say I have it under contract for 110. And he says, listen, I'd give you 135, but the roof's terrible. So I figured it's like 15 grand. Okay. So I have it under contract at 100. I'm going to try, okay? I'm going to try everything I can. Listen, I'm not a contractor. You know, the roof was a little bit worse than I thought. I'm going to verify it. I'll probably bring a contractor out there and have them write up an estimate and go, listen, the roof, it's $15,000 to replace. So I go, you didn't really share that information with me. I just took your word for it. You said the roof was relatively newer, and now I've discovered it's not. Typically, the seller feels bad about it. They all don't, and it doesn't work all the time. But I'm going to ask for a discount. So I already have an assignment of agreement. Say I'm already making a $15,000 to $20,000 spread. Why don't you just go ask for a discount? So a lot of times I'll ask for a $10,000 discount because I always swing for the fences. And say the seller agrees to a $5,000 discount. So we go back to the original contract. We make a note. We already have it under assignment for $120,000. The really cool thing is, if you put this clause in your assignment of agreement, whatever discount you negotiate on that original contract, you keep, not your new buyer. I learned this the hard way multiple times. We often have to renegotiate a lot in wholesaling. You put in a lot of work. You guys spend your marketing dollars. You bust your hind to get these deals. You need to have a clear written instruction in your assignment agreement. If there's ever a discount on the property that you renegotiate on your own, you get to keep it. The way most assignment agreements read is any type of discount on the property, since they own the rights to the contract, then they are solely entitled to that as additional money. So if you knock $5,000 off of it, now you are working for your cash buyer. So here's what I want to do. I'm going to read this aloud. Guys, copy it down. I don't share this with a lot of people, but it is gold. You can go back and renegotiate any deal that you have under contract with an assignment agreement and comfortably pocket the difference. So it says here, a signer may at any time before closing renegotiate the underlying purchase price in this contract with the original seller. The assigner, which is us, the assignee is your new buyer for clarification, is entitled to the entire difference between the contract price and this assignment agreement fee. The difference, if any, will be paid as an additional assignment fee at closing. A signer's negotiation of the purchase price will not affect the total due at closing by the assignee. Boom. I'm telling you guys right there, it's an easy way to put whatever discount you get after the original contract. And even if you're locked in to an assignment of contract, you can still have room to negotiate that price. On average, when we do this, we add about $3,000 to our assignment agreements. Guys, use this information. It took me forever to figure that out the hard way. You want to have room in your assignment agreement to be able to get a discount to where you get it, not your buyer. And if it comes down to a title company and a closing and you don't have that in writing and your buyer wants to say, well, he reduced the price by $5,000 or $10,000, you need to make sure you're legally entitled to that money. Guys, that clause right there has made me so much money over the last 10 years. It's ridiculous. So let's go and review here. We want to get a non-refundable deposit. Ask your buyers for it. I know it's going to make you guys a little bit uncomfortable, but you'll thank me later. If they're coming back the second, third, and fourth round, you need to train your cash buyers and have them expect it. Say, listen, the first deal, I'll go ahead and put an escrow for you, but understanding moving forward, all non-refundable deposits are made out to my company. That's just our policy. Either you want to do business with me or you don't. If they like the product you sell them and in return they make money, they'll bend over backward on the next round for you. And then you have them trained for life. I've had people who've bought over 50 properties from me. They just know the deal. Okay. Number two, make sure you put the clause in there that your cash buyers cannot go around and contact your seller in any way, shape, or form. I don't even let them call the seller for anything. If they have a question, they can call me or they can call my title company. If my title company has a question saying he's doing this, they'll call me immediately. And I kind of put the fear in them and they understand cheating me is going to be very painful and they'll lose their non-refundable deposit. The last but not least is putting in the verbiage. Guys, just go back and replay. I mean, you can put it in word for word on it. Any type of discount you negotiate on that original contract and you're under an assignment agreement, make sure you're entitled to it. And guys, if you have liens on the property or anything like that and you're working on them up to the closing and you're doing an assignment agreement, that's going to allow you for any type of deductions on a code violations, a tax lien, anything like that. If you get a reduction at the last minute, you get to keep the money, not your buyer. Guys, stop assigning your wholesale contracts until you implement those 3 strategies. I used them exclusively when I first started this business. Okay, guys, if you like this content and this type of information and you want me to keep providing my 19 years of expertise in wholesaling, do me a favor, hit the like button, smash that subscribe button, and leave your comments and suggestions of future videos you want me to record for you, and I'll be happy to share with it. This is Rick Ginn here with Flip with Rick, and I'll see you soon.